the internet, for all of its flaws, is like a decent place and way to find other people with very niche interests, like left-wing politics and cryptocurrency. I think it was just like cultivating community and giving people space to interact with one another, find one another, and then just kind of like develop from there to know what are the things that people are thinking about, what are they interested in. It's more of an art than a science, I would say. We're trying to embed values of solidarity within technological systems, because the normal tech industry does not, by and large, do that. People do express solidarity through digital systems, but you are using someone else's servers, right? Like, you are using someone else's infrastructure. And the moment that you're deemed a risk in one way or another, you'll be removed. And so, for example, the amount of groups that are debanked because they're raising money for Palestine or something like that, they can no longer use, their PayPal, they can no longer use their bank, they can no longer use all these things that they had just kind of assumed would always be there for them. Bread Cooperative is for anyone who is skeptical of the current financial system, I would say. If you are interested in trying to take part in financial arrangements that are not designed to extract from you as much as possible, Bread Cooperative is for you. If you're someone who wants to take part in the solidarity economy using, a frontier technologies, Bread Cooperative is for you. If you are also someone who has a very global type of place in the world, but you also don't want to be a part of the globalized capitalist economy and still try as much as you can to stay rooted in solidaristic practices, I think Bread Cooperative is for you as well.
Could you give us the Blockchain Socialist point of view on AI for people who want to be productive, people who want to stay current, but also want to be ethical about these new tools? How should someone on the left side of the political aisle be, perceiving these tools and navigating it? Hello, and welcome back to Is This the New Internet? I am joined by a guest today that I can actually credit for the reason as to why I have a podcast, and a big reason as to why I'm a little bit more active in the crypto left community. Guest today is Josh Davila, but you might know him better as the Blockchain Socialist. Hi, Josh.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So, Josh, could you tell the folks at home a little bit about yourself? Because you've had a podcast for the longest time, and it is about a topic that a lot of people don't normally associate crypto with. So could you tell us a little bit about your origin story? How does all these, seemingly opposing forces come together in your life?
Yeah, so the story is basically that after I graduated college, I was very broke. I was working a job that didn't pay very much money, and I was working Uber on the side in order to pay for the car that I needed to drive to my work that paid me very little. And in that situation is, of course, very, it can be pretty stressful. And it also pushed me to kind of need to find answers to my money problems pretty quickly. And at first I was interested in, biotech stocks and thinking I studied neuroscience in school. Maybe I can just read clinical papers and that would help me in the biotech stock market, because what tends to happen is a drug is approved and then, you see the stock price jump up. And I was not good at that. But in the process of kind of learning about these things, I came across cryptocurrency, which before then, all I kind of knew about was Bitcoin as a thing to buy drugs online with. And at this time, what was really interesting to me was Ethereum and this concept of smart contracts and DAOs at the time. And the way that it was kind of all explained to me is this is a technology that you could create things imagine Uber, but without the Uber company. So the drivers of Uber would have much more control and say over the kind of the economic workings of the arrangement that they have with Uber as a driver. And that was really interesting to me because it felt like I was getting, platform cooperatives being explained to me by a bunch of libertarians. And so to me, there was something there. I was like also at the time, this was the rise of Bernie Sanders, and I was really interested in learning more about socialism and doing kind of yeah classical reading of different Marxist texts at the time. um, was always more on the left, kind of politically for the most part. And I think then I was pushed to kind of read theory, and at the same time, talking to friends who are deep into political theory, I was also kind of learning more about cryptocurrency in this like hyper speculative kind of place that had these interesting technological promises about the future. And so, yeah, I for a long time was just super dissatisfied, I guess, with the left's response to cryptocurrency up to that point. And so I cursed myself by starting a blog and a podcast that I very uncreatively named the Blockchain Socialist, in order to just get these thoughts and ideas that I had in my head down and share them with people because I was going nuts I, otherwise. So that's basically the origin story.
So it was actually, the name, the Blockchain Socialist, that absolutely got me to click the first time. I was like, ooh, what's this? And then, well, I
I'm
always
still
thought that,
embarrassed by it.
but like now it's almost like you've built up this entire brand in it, and it's still going to serve as a pipeline to getting, I think, all sorts of attention. So could you tell me a little bit about that? Like, what was that like? The Blockchain Socialists. You have a lot of people who are into crypto who aren't too aligned with ideas that socialism like centering, and the leftists aren't too keen on crypto. So how does one sort of surf this wave of very opposing yet strong forces like currently?
How do I do it? I'm still not sure myself. I think it's kind of, I mean, I think for me, I just try to understand either side of of that equation to try and see where are the places that we can bridge and find like commonality. I think that's just kind of like the most useful way to go about these types of things. I don't really go into conversations with other people expecting them to agree with everything that I say and such. So I definitely try to always be open and like willing to receive thoughts and feedback and comments from people who may not like the term socialism, but maybe they agree on in principle on a lot of the ideas of it simply because they don't they don't know about it that much really. So to me, I think it's just about like trying to find a way to bridge that gap in the best way that I can. Um, and that just means really just being open.
So I think media is a great way of, bridging these gaps, bridging these divides. So you're a pretty prolific writer. You have a book, you're a podcaster as well. So you've built this presence over several years. What's this journey been like? What signals are you getting from your community about all these different activities that you're engaging in currently?
Carving a lefting space within the crypto world, and vice versa. I mean, it started off with first just creating a community and creating, for example, the subreddit and Discord server, and just kind of like probing out there who was interested in it and why they were interested in it. And I think just like in that process, people come out of the woodwork and they share their thoughts and they share what they think. And the internet, for all of its flaws, is like a decent place and way to find other people with very niche interests, like left wing politics and cryptocurrency. I think it's just like cultivating community and giving people space to interact with one another, find one another, and then just kind of like develop from there, to know what are the things that people are thinking about, what are they interested in. Um, and I kind of try to respond to that a little bit in combination with, I guess, to be honest, I also try to focus on the things that bring me joy or bring me like what is interesting to me in a particular moment, that may be reacting to what's happening in the world at a particular time period. But at least for me, it's important to, if I'm not really enjoying something, it's really hard for me to get to for me to do it. I'm just like that kind of person, and so yeah, I think it's part of it is just like trying to combine what are people saying in the community, what am I seeing, and try to, yeah. those together. That's kind of how it's more of an art than a science, I would say.
Yeah, and I appreciate the effort you put into this art, because finding the community on the crypto leftist Discord, which is now called the Bread Cooperative Discord, I just found it was a really helpful place, because what you say about these opposing forces, it's really nice to find people who are pulling in the same direction. And neither of these ideas are stuff that you do casually. Like, you're really into the effect that politics can have on society if you choose to be part of the political left. And also, crypto folks, you can't really do this casually. Like, if you buy a little bit of crypto and leave it on Coinbase, it isn't the same as buying it, having multiple wallets, using it, and engaging in the community. So these are two very strong fields of interest that you've managed to really successfully knit together in this community. And it is by having successfully knitted that I am now a part of Bread Cooperative. I'm helping out with the marketing, and it is, thanks for your effort in there. And I do want to talk about a lot of these different activities that you engage in at length over this. And I think the one thing that I think is doing a lot of good work for the crypto/left overlap is your book, Blockchain Radicals, because you really clearly laid out kind of the state of play and what you hope that this book would achieve. So could you tell the folks at home a little bit about this? What motivated this book? And for someone who knows not too much about either side and how they overlap.
What pushed me to do the book was that I was asked to write a book. So before the book, I was kind of just anonymous because I was way too embarrassed to put my real name to the Blockchain Socialist. But that came out of I was forced to, I don't know, forced to, but I was asked to de-anonymize myself with the publishing of the book, which I think was going to happen anyways over time. But so, yeah, I was asked by a left-wing publisher called Repeater Books, the publishing house of Mark Fisher, if people are familiar with capitalist realism. The book was really meant to be just kind of a high level laying out what is the framework, a proposed framework for the left to understand crypto in a way that would still give space to both the appropriate criticisms that the crypto industry deserves, and also like giving space to people to be able to experiment and find the things that are useful about it towards a left-wing political goal. And so the way that I try to simply describe that is that if you are part of some sort of organization that's going to challenge capitalist institutions, like in a real way, challenge capitalist institutions, the first thing that's going to happen to you is you're going to have your bank account blocked. That's going to be like, when you're a real threat, they're going to block your bank account. It's like the easiest thing they can do in the world. And we're seeing this turn out to be true with kind of debanking happening towards left-wing groups and journalists who are reporting on Palestine or Gaza. They are losing access to their bank accounts, and that's like hurting their ability to do their work. Like, we live under capitalism. Like, there are certain things that we don't yet really have the infrastructure to get around so easily. We have to deal with that reality now. And the reality now is that payments infrastructure, financial infrastructure is by and large centrally controlled by particular technocratic elites. As soon as they find you to deem you a risk in certain ways, then you're going to lose access to your funds, to your money, to your savings. And that's going to make it hard to pay rents, to buy groceries, to do all these things. If you have a family, to pay for things for your kids. Financial sanctions are the easiest thing for people to understand if something happens. And in the moment right now, we can see that through what's happening in Gaza, or I mean, to Palestinians kind of generally, but in particular to Gaza, where most people do not have easy access to bank accounts. They are unable to receive money in their banks because the entire financial infrastructure is kind of biased against Palestinians de facto. And so if you want to send money to the bank account of someone who's Palestinian, like, it just is like a huge pain. And so one of the things that I'm doing, for example, is sending cryptocurrency to those who are in Gaza, who are suffering through this genocide effectively. Crypto is one of the ways that they ask to receive money, because that's the one way that they know that they for sure will receive the money, rather than having to wait a month for like a bank transfer to come in. So yeah, financial sanctions, this is like one level of type of thing that I think is very clearly important to take seriously if you're on the political left. But then additionally, if we want to move beyond that, as far as like other things that I see, I think for me, the biggest inspiration is Cybersyn. Cybersyn was this experiment in Chile during Salvador Allende's presidency, where it lasted for about 3 years before there was a military coup against his presidency by the Pinochet regime. So the military came in, basically killed a bunch of people. He committed suicide before they got to him, and ruined this experiment that was Cybersyn, which is meant to be an alternative to command and control, kind of Soviet style economics, as well as corporate American economics, and was meant to be somewhere in the middle of a decentralized kind of system of being able to take in input from workers. If you want to like achieve some sort of way of developing institutions, but ones that are not solely having the levers of power to given to those who are at the top of this institution, to decentralize that power structure, you need technical infrastructure to kind of facilitate that. I mean, maybe you can find ways to do that without technology. I would argue it'd probably be really difficult, really slow. But I do think that using technology to facilitate something like that, to facilitate some type of democratically managed economy, is like something that is worthy of exploring. And blockchains are kind of like the biggest thing that I see as a potential technological infrastructure to facilitate that.
So when you say putting in place this infrastructure, like I know crypto and DAOs, we've done a lot of stuff with shared ownership, but also, a lot of people don't like getting involved in the nitty gritty of management and stuff. And it's like some people are willing to cede that control in order to just let people higher up on the chain take, the decisions. So there seems to be a little bit of an effort asymmetry almost to make sure this happens, and kind of the way organizations, the way in school group projects, there'll always be one or two people who will kind of take the lead in a group of like 4 people doing a project. So this is something I've noticed in DAOs as well, that some people are just more involved than others. How do we sort of balance this out? Is there a way are you seeing applications of this within the blockchain space that sort of get over some of these frictions that we just tend to normally have in this? Because this is, again, it's not a technical solution, almost as a human solution, maybe using the technology as a conduit.
Yeah, so I think the thing they're kind of maybe referring to, like what I saw in the great age of DAOs that lasted for maybe like a year or two in the crypto space. A big problem is what you're saying is that like a lot of people were fantasizing about collective ownership, but not truly understanding what that means in effect. Like what does it look like for you to be part of something that is collectively owned and governed? Because most people are just not a part of something. I mean, especially if you come from maybe from the West, in the US, and maybe many places in Europe, that like the average person doesn't have so many opportunities to like be an active participant in like something that is close to them per se. If you're just like working a normal job, you work under some company that has a CEO, that's an owner, that is not you. These are different kind of relationships, being something that is collectively owned versus something that is owned by somebody else. And in the standard kind of corporate world, you are really just trying to look out for yourself. Like that is kind of like what the whole system kind of pushes people towards. This causes a lot of alienation for people, and I think people saw DAOs as like this alternative towards collective ownership. What ended up happening is that a lot of people who wanted collective ownership simply kind of mapped on the same types of structures around, I guess, capitalism that you expect, and were expecting different results. So they kind of more like digitized in a different way startups rather than try to make something truly different. I mean, they would argue maybe that it was different in the sense that like people are able to buy equity, and you can take your company public in a way, without having to go through like doing an IPO or whatever. But I think what it ended up happening is that it just created a lot of poor incentives within an organization. And at the same time, what was kind of very silly to me is that a lot of people wanted this and didn't even know that cooperatives existed. They had like never even fathomed that there were that collective ownership has existed under with humans for a long time, and there are plenty of like practices around it. None of these were like really seen or implemented, I think, in part because of just where a lot of the people who were into DAOs kind of came from. I think a lot of the solutions, a lot of the easier solutions maybe would have been just like different understanding of what they were going for and how to go about it. Technologically, I think there is, yeah, I think it's still like up in the air. I don't think there's like a single technological issue that solves this problem, but at the very least, kind of not falling for the trap of making a governance token that's freely available in the free market for anyone to buy and then expecting that to kind of figure itself out. I'm not saying you should completely not do that, but that like, you should really know what you're doing if you are going to do that and understand the consequences of it potentially. So yeah, but I think the things that, that we've been building at Bread Cooperative have tried to answer for some of those things by making more clear lines over what are the things that people govern, rather than everything being governed by a governance token, for example, is a problem in many DAOs that I see.
Nice. And yeah, I think that's a great time, I think, to talk about how this is kind of being put in practice with Bread, because having been there for like a year, just over a year at this point, like it's been really refreshing to see, that what you talk about ownership. People do feel like they have a stake in this. Like we do make financial decisions together. We do talk about a lot of our processes together in a way that often is kind of just reserved for the heads of departments at companies. So everyone sort of has a seat at the table. So could you talk about, in practice of how cooperatives have used this sort of decentralized technology to bring your idea of what cooperatives used to be into a current age where we're all working remotely, we're not just hanging out and meeting up in person. So there's a lot that can be achieved with this technology that we are sort of seeing every day when we work together. So could you tell the folks a little bit about this?
Yeah, so I mean, you probably, of course, a lot of the processes that we have in place at Bread Cooperative. But one of the things that that we do, for example, is we just have a quarterly budget process where we basically all together look at the budget that we have available to us, what is in our treasury, what we have been spending on, and to try to figure out what we should spend on next. And we do that kind of as a collective practice. Everyone is also paid the same wage at Bread Cooperative, or that's kind of defined everyone together as well. And these are all things that, like, yeah, if you tried to do that in like any sort of corporate setting, I mean, it just wouldn't happen. You just wouldn't really have that possibility unless you have a really, really nice boss, which people seldom have that nice of a boss. So, yeah, I mean, we just have the kind of like way of allowing people to share or propose what are the things that they want to work on for the cooperative, how long they expect to be working per week or per month. And then we kind of come together and like come to consensus with each other on what exactly we're going to be spending on. And we have, people can propose, and then we also have a strategic committee on the side that kind of is the final decider on approving these budget proposals, but also the strategic committee defines what are the strategic directives for each quarter. So every quarter, the committee comes together, they define the strategic directives that they want to be going for in the next quarter. So this is kind of defining some of the bits of work that we're planning to pay for in the next quarter. And then people can create their payment proposals based on those strategic directives. And people who are in the strategic directives committee are generally people who are voted in, or kind of, yeah, we reach consensus on who's in those positions.
Something I found really refreshing about the matter of pay over here is, over here it seems more like a dialogue than a negotiation. You are, of course, telling people what you're going to be bringing to the table, how much time it's going to take, but it's not like you're negotiating, like anchoring a value, trying to back and forth it. And I find that's a very fundamentally different dynamic, because it doesn't feel like you have to talk yourself up in a way. It is like, it's very simple to present the value you're bringing forward to the table. You talk about results, but also it is about the amount of effort that goes into it. And I find that that's a very refreshing take on this. How do you think, as someone who set this up and who's currently, taking an active role in managing it, what sort of questions should they be asking themselves about to help kind of find a way to start dipping their toes into this? What thought process did you go through when coming up with, with the other co-founders about this sort of a setup?
Yeah, so I mean, at least in my case, I was pretty ideologically set on making it a cooperative because I really do want to practice or like do in practice decentralized organizing or um, more horizontal organizing because I've worked in very corporate jobs before. I've worked in giant hierarchies before. It's a giant machine that kind of tries to squeeze everyone like a lemon as much as possible to extract profits. And that's not, I'm not saying that like in our cooperative, of course, we have to make profit, we have to make money and revenues in order to pay people. That's just like a reality. But the difference is that the power dynamic is very different. And I'm just not someone that wants to be like at the top trying to squeeze lemon juice out of a bunch of lemons, but are actually people. So I mean, part of it was like the commitment to trying to live our values. So that was the case for everybody who was on the team, as we were making this setup in the first place, and which it also, evolved in different ways. This is not how it always worked. This is not how it worked in the very beginning because the amount of people increased and we grew, which is why we need to put in a lot of these processes in place. Yeah, I would say that like if you're interested in doing something like that, it's definitely a bit context dependent, and you have to consider the size of your group. Because it really becomes different when you're talking about, 3 people kind of project that you're coming together. It's like already fairly horizontal if you only have 3 people. I mean, of course, it depends on the personal dynamics between people. But if you're talking about, now we're like 10, 15. Before then, you should have like some processes in mind. We had, some parts of the cooperative where there were kind of very soft processes, which then hardened in a sense in order to like deal with the complexity of dealing with more people. But yeah, I would say it's context dependent, it's size dependent. It also depends on probably your industry as well and like how you generate revenue, maybe. But yeah, I'm really a big fan of the micro solidarity framework, which I recommend check it out if people want to see micro solidarity. They have a lot of really interesting tools and like ways of thinking about how to do this type of organizing around companies, around organizations. Yeah, you don't have to be a cooperative to practice a lot of these things either. It's just something that that we wanted to practice specifically.
Sweet. So let's talk about Bread itself because we've spoken about, the structure and stuff, but what is Bread? So what is Bread Cooperative? What does Bread Cooperative stand for? And, what value are you bringing to this world?
Yeah, so Bread Cooperative is a worker cooperative where we build solidarity finance applications using decentralized technology. And kind of the main decentralized technology that we use is blockchains, cryptocurrency. Effectively, we try to build out these applications trying to support and expand the already existing solidarity economy that is, worth billions of dollars today, which is essentially the solidarity economy you can think of as all the types of economic activity that don't adhere to the logic of capital, of like profits accumulation, or logics of the state. So kind of in between there is that's kind of where the solidarity economy exists. Labor unions, it's cooperatives. It could even be your religious organization, mutual aid societies. There's a lot of different things that people may take part in that they may not realize as part of the solidarity economy. Because yeah, as humans, at least for me, I think one of the things that always bothered me about classical economics that I was always taught in school, like classic liberal thoughts that like humans act as purely rational agents in the economy that are trying to maximize utility is just simply not true. Like I'm not, at least I don't want to live my life constantly thinking, how can I be the most economically rational at all points so I can maximize the amount of utility that I'm getting out of life, or maximizing my own like economic benefit. But that like there are things that we want that are beyond just these like very surface level economic measurements, that deserve to be considered and should be considered in an economic system as much as possible. We build our own applications. We also do client work for others. We help them build out applications or infrastructure that they may be building out in order to make revenue. The main application that we have is the Solidarity Fund, which is basically a mix between a local currency and a credit union, where users give stablecoins to the application. In this case, it's XDAI on Gnosis chain, and then users get back one-to-one bread. So $1 is one XDAI, which is one bread. So one bread is $1. And what's happening is that stablecoin is being put into decentralized finance and accumulating interest. So just automatically you're earning money as soon as you give it, and then every month there's a distribution based on a vote by the holders of bread of the interest that's been accumulated for that month. And you can vote on a set of different projects that are politically aligned with Bread Cooperative to receive some of those funds. When we design technology, I think the thing that makes us quite different is that we try to embed the values of solidarity within that technological system. So we disagree with this idea that technology is just neutral, but that in fact technology is a facilitator of social relationships. And most of the time technology is created facilitating social relationships that are actually harmful. If you look at social media, in order to get people sticking to the feed, they have to create engagement and get emotional, they have to emotionally extract out of you in a sense in order to gain your attention, which means that's content that makes you angry. It's content that isn't the healthiest probably. And so what we try to do in applications is embed solidarity in them. And so that's kind of like the framework or ethical framework that maybe we try to keep in mind when we're building out our applications.
And this very much is the polar opposite to what we see in a lot of the crypto space, right? So whenever I meet people, say, yeah, I'm in marketing, I work at Bread Cooperative, but wait, we're not doing crypto stuff in the way that you think. When we talk to different groups of people, there's a lot of, preconceived notions about what crypto is doing. So we have to keep caveating this. So in your mind, who is Bread for? Like when you see the ideal person who's going to be, we call it baking, the minting process of our currency, we call baking because, hey, bread. Who do you see this currency being for? And who would you like to actually notice what we're doing and sort of get more involved in this?
Bread Cooperative is for anyone who is skeptical of the current financial system, I would say. If you are interested in trying to take part in financial arrangements that are not designed to extract from you as much as possible, Bread Cooperative is for you. If you're someone who wants to take part in the solidarity economy using, frontier technologies, Bread Cooperative is for you. If you are also someone who has a very global type of place in the world, but you also don't want to be a part of the globalized capitalist economy and still try as much as you can to stay rooted in solidaristic practices, I think Bread Cooperative is for you as well. The type of people that I would like to see coming in are definitely, it's people who have something to bring value. Something to add to the cooperative, which is a lot of people. I just today was, talking to one of my friends based in Nepal and talking to him about some of the specific conditions and situations there as far as banking goes. And there in Nepal, I know they have basically the term in Nepalese is effectively means the same thing as cooperative, but we would call them in English saving circles. So it's really common that saving circles in Nepal, they would get big enough to where they would become cooperative banks. So they already have kind of this tradition of creating, starting from solidarity economics, like saving circles, which maybe I can explain later, to turning that into larger savings pools, which is effectively what a bank is. That's kind of the thing that I would love to hear input from others who engage in these solidaristic economic practices to see how we can kind of help improve these practices and reinforce it against the constant encroachment of more extractive financial systems. So as it's like people who are interested in financial sovereignty, but not because they want to like just be rich and like not have to work or something like that, but more so that they want financial sovereignty for like a collective form of agency that is coming under threats. If you look at the rise of debanking, I think if you also look at the rise of artificial intelligence and the potential for super intelligence in the future, like also something that should be like, there's probably a lot of things that the world should be doing to prep for that possibility. But yeah, people who want to engage in economic democracy.
A lot of what you mentioned, it's like these are ideas that are, trying to confront what's actually happening right now. Cryptos tends to like get ahead of itself and like reinventing the wheel per se or creating something absolutely new. But what
Yeah.
we're doing over here is just kind of, hey, these are ideas that people absolutely know about. They've been trusted for generations. In a lot of places, these are informal economies that have existed long before banking as we know it today has taken hold in those parts of society. So could you tell me a little bit about this philosophy with we've used these words before in Bread called solidarity primitives. And could you speak to the core of these ideas? Like what separates a lot of what's happening and the ideas being built on at Bread Cooperative versus what people would tend to see in the crypto space? And kind of, can you speak to the skeptics a little bit over here who think that we're just, running away with like building value on value? Like what is Bread doing differently?
The biggest difference is kind of what I described previously. Like we're trying to embed values of solidarity within technological systems because the normal tech industry does not, by and large, do that. Or if, because people do express solidarity through digital systems, but I think the thing that's abstracted away from a lot of people not understanding is that you are using someone else's servers, right? Like you are using someone else's infrastructure. And the moment that you're deemed a risk in one way or another, you'll be removed. And so already today, a lot of the solidarity economy happens through centralized financial services. But what we've seen is that when you like brush up a little bit too close to what are the hard lines within capitalism, um, for example, the amount of groups that are debanked because they're raising money for Palestine or something like that, um, they can no longer use, their PayPal. They can no longer use their bank. They can no longer use all these things that they had just kind of assumed would always be there for them. And by that time that then they lose access, they can't use they can't do the thing that they wanted to do originally. So like we're trying to bridge this gap of like allowing people to engage in the solidarity that they're already doing while also giving them the sovereignty and the agency if they are going to like even if they're doing something that is like um something that normal tradfi will not allow them to do. So I would say that like if you're someone who really believes hard in liberal institutions and really believes that everything is going well right now, then maybe it's not for you. Like maybe you won't be convinced because you think, oh no, things are fine. But I think that, just given the last 10 years, to me, it's hard to believe that there are so many of those people really, unless they are the politicians themselves in many respects, um, to think that like institutions of today are working. Um, so yeah, the thing that we're trying to do is solve problems that are happening right now and build out the alternative institutions for the future.
If we are trying to build alternatives, if we are trying to show people that other things are possible, a big part of this was, updating the way Bread looks, the way Bread feels. And we've gone through a pretty significant rebrand. So first, let's start with, where we were. And as someone who helped set up Bread, who got Bread moving, can you talk about where we were and kind of where we are to then use as
Yeah.
a springboard to where we're going?
Yeah. So Bread Cooperative used to be called Bread Chain Cooperative. which is very confusing for people because they thought we were building a blockchain, but actually we weren't. We were building on blockchains that already existed, so that was sometimes confusing. So that's why we changed the name we dropped the chain because all we have to lose are our chains, comrades, and just stayed Bread Cooperative. And at that point, the branding was very kind of like more akin to what you see in like cryptos in the crypto world, kind of like a Game Boy type of style. Um, that worked for getting started. We had very little resources. It was just sort of slowly over time, getting another grant, getting another grant, getting a little bit more money that we were then able to really put the effort and the time and energy that it required to doing this rebrand. And you were a big part of helping this rebrand happen, as well as the design team at Bread Cooperative, where we realized that we kind of needed to shift our tone and shift what we wanted to what was the thing that we actually wanted to portray to people who maybe are not in the crypto space to kind of like understand kind of quickly what we're about. And so we did a lot of workshops, we did a lot of thinking, a lot of talking, a lot of sketching out what the different types of brandings we could use, and ultimately what we ended up with is trying to give I guess the impression to new people that we are a group that you can trust, that we are kind of like institutional in a way, because we realize that for a lot of people, coming to a website that was a little bit kind of Game Boy style, 8-bit, 16-bit um, type of design, if they were not in the crypto space, it was like not conveying trust. And so the thing that we wanted to do was convey trust and just be more direct about who we're serving, um, and make the branding and imagery kind of like match that. Um, so yes, and then we simplified a lot of the language thanks to your work, where we tried to be a little bit less kind of academic and more just kind of like talking about the actual issues that people face. Um, and yeah, I think now I've only gotten good things said about Bread Cooperative, even by people who are skeptical. They liked the website. Was what I've consistently gotten as the person who kind of like created the original or helped create the original branding. I was a little bit hesitant to change it, but now I'm really glad that we did.
Going forward, we have a few pretty exciting things happening. Like, we've increased our footprint a lot when it comes to trying to give back to the community as much as we can. Like, we've been doing a whole bunch of seminars that are a chance to just showcase what we do, how we do it. And for organizations that might learn some new skills, might adopt some new tools, it's a chance to sort of see things in practice. So could you tell the folks a little bit about how these webinars work, the type of folks we speak to? So in case that there might be someone listening right now in a similar organization, that we can potentially work with them on certain stuff like this.
Yeah, sure. So we've done, I think, monthly-ish webinars the past few months, where we've just kind of sharing a lot of the learnings that we've had that we've realized that actually a lot of people don't know about. Because what I realized is that when I would talk about Bread Cooperative to other people, or I think even probably you as well, and you explained what we did, they'd be like, "Oh, wow, that's really interesting. That's great. I want to know more." But we didn't really have that information out in the public. So we did these free webinars to try to kind of explain and share some of the things that we do. For example, sharing how we handle our multi-signature wallets, which is effectively like our joint bank accounts where we hold all the cooperatives or most of the cooperatives' funds, and how we manage that in a democratic way. Things like that. Uh, that people who maybe are familiar with cryptocurrency conceptually, but they've never maybe had the opportunity to engage in it in the way that we've been able to engage in it, to see how we do it, so that maybe that can inform maybe some sort of initiative that they go after or something like that. So yeah, it's really meant to attract people who want to do similar things, people who like want to find some sort of like know how they can do cooperativism uh, with blockchain, and also people who are just like interested to learn more about the impacts that we're making around the world, which we're trying our best to try and share that out in the world as well. So yeah, we're also inviting funders, potential philanthropists, impact investors. Um, we have at least in the UK and in the Netherlands, if people, for example, can donate and they'll get their like tax credit, so that you can write that off of your taxes. So we, yeah, basically are trying to find the people who want to partner with us, either helping us build it, help with funding, help with meeting partners who could use the technology that we're building. Um, it's just meant to. It's a way to kind of like start conversations and give an opening and give other people the opportunity to meet some of us and see who we are and what we're about.
Yeah, and I think when matters of money, it makes a lot of it builds a lot of trust if you can put like a face to the name, and like just actually see people's ideas, ask questions. Because I think the interactive part about these webinars, I think, is a really useful part. There's always ample time to just have a chit chat, like flesh out the ideas a little bit more, because crypto isn't easy. There's so much stuff that is abstract to a lot of people. And I think just being able to ask questions is really important. So if you're hearing this, make sure you're following us on the Bread Cooperative channel so that if you have any questions, like we're all super approachable all over social media, but if you just want to sit down with us and chit chat while we share ideas, these webinars happen almost every month. It's a great time to do that. So, Josh, if someone would like to get involved with Bread to help out, what would you say? How can they get started? Where did they get started?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, first, check out our website. Make sure you like what we're doing. And that's something that aligns with you. So bread.coop. I think there on the website, you should find an application for potentially contributing to Bread Cooperative. So you can always, there's a form online you can fill out to share kind of what your skills are if you want to contribute skills wise. We also have our email is contact@bread.coop. So if you want to inquire about something specific, something else, potential donation. What else? We also have applications for the Solidarity Fund as well. If you're running a project that you think really fits the ethos of the project and really would like to be considered as one of the options for people to take on to vote to give some of that funding to you, the application should be there on the website as well. Um, and we have a YouTube channel where we share our community calls there, our webinar recordings there. Um, I'm pretty sure Marv will link the link tree. We always have a bunch of the quick links there. If you have crypto, or even if you don't have crypto, I would say check out the Solidarity Fund. Um, and yeah, it's meant to be as easy as possible for those who are also not in the crypto space, so that they can also try and begin experimenting with these things without having to engage in like intense speculation or something like that in a way that you don't lose any money. So like I mentioned in the Solidarity Fund, you don't lose any money by giving money to it, because you can always pull out 100% of the money that you put in. So we only take the interest that's accumulated. Otherwise, all that money is still yours.
Yeah, if there's any other links that we can share to help you get involved with Bread, to get more information, it'll be in the description. So don't you worry. It's all going to be there for you. Now, Josh, a little bit more about you. As someone who is not a full-time developer and stuff, I've been following your journey about vibe coding. And also, to wind that back a little bit, like AI is a divisive topic for a lot of people. So could you give us the blockchain socialist point of view on AI for people who want to be productive, for people who want to stay current, but also want to be ethical about these new tools? How should someone on the left side of the political aisle be, perceiving these tools and navigating it?
Yeah, I think this is something that like I try to tread very carefully on, because it's definitely something that I can understand, different people's perspective on, and is not. I don't think there's like a really simple, clear answer in reality if you really like break down the question, or the problem that's kind of facing us at the moment. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think the thing that's really been blowing a lot of people's minds the past couple of years, if you're in the technology space, if you are a developer, like I think a lot of people admit by now that AI is just an incredibly useful tool for software development. At the very least, set everything else aside. At the very least, we can say that for software development, it's really useful for developers. And this is coming at like a cost as well. Like kind of the insidious thing that we haven't really fully grasped or understood is like all the data that we've been producing over the internet has just been gobbled up into training data for AI. A friend of mine, Matt Dryhurst, he said something along the lines of like all data is training data. That like everything that was recorded over the internet like is going to become training data, and that's kind of like that's what we signed up for. And it's also like I think there's something uncomfortable to say about like the naivety a little bit of open source software, or of just like having zero licenses on a software if you don't want it to be, if you don't want an AI to train on it. But then you also limit the ability for other people to potentially use it. Anyways, there's plenty of like ethical questions around this, but I think the thing that we are past, I would argue that maybe a hard pill for others to swallow is like the toothpaste is already out of the tube. The models have already been trained, they've already been created, and they something useful has been created out of it. The thing that people are angry about when it comes to AI is not AI, but is actually capitalism. So I think that's really the thing that needs to be understood, is that even if we lived in a socialist economy, I don't think a socialist economy would say that like would ban AI or would say that AI shouldn't happen. It, in theory, at least, is a type of technology that drastically improves productivity in some respects. It's also, I think, hurt a lot of productivity, maybe for some people in certain industries, in certain places. Like definitely for certain types of writing, I'm still not super satisfied with a lot of AI output. Also, we have been using AI for a long time without really calling it AI. Every time you've put in an address on Google Maps, AI was used in the background to find the best path for you to get there. Um, it's specifically like these LLMs that have, I think, caused a lot of fear for people and like misunderstanding, um, and for like also a lot of good reasons, I think. But yeah, I guess for me, I'm definitely interested and like try my best to use the open source models as much as I can. So if people don't know, you have closed source models, which is like Anthropic, OpenAI. These are all the frontier models where the code for how they work is not publicly available, and that's part of their intellectual property. And then you have AI models that are open source, which mean that everything that they use is like publicly available, so you can see how they work, or at least you can see the code. And China has just been like killing it, to be honest, in producing these open source models. And I think kind of because the toothpaste is out of the tube, the question to ask ourselves is not like, should AI exist or not? I think the question is really like, uh, how do we respond to the existence of these AIs? I think the dividing line for people on some of these questions is also like, do you believe that this technology will become better to create something like a super intelligence, or like something that like it's not about consciousness. Like the question about consciousness is like, throw that out the window. It's not about whether the AIs are conscious. It's about like, what can they do, right? I don't care if they have a soul or not. That's doesn't matter. It's like, what can someone do with it that could create like some pretty big existential risks? There's a non-zero chance, and that it's something to take seriously. And by just kind of like refusing to use AI, you're kind of putting yourself at a disadvantage in certain areas. I think there are plenty of areas where it's like good not to use AI at all, but in many areas it's people have described it as a jagged frontier. Like there are some things that it's just really good at, and other things that's just really really not. I'm really just like talking around your question maybe a little bit. It's a complicated one. For me, I think the more ethical position, the most ethical and productive position you can take is try as much as possible to use open source models. Um, and that there needs to be like significant policy change around AI and its proliferation if you want to like reduce and mitigate the risks around like AI risk, existential AI risk. Yeah, that's I don't know if that if that answers your question very well.
That totally does, actually, because I think it leads on really well to, you've given us what you think people should be doing, but tell us about what you actually do. Like, what does your open source AI stack look like that sort of, ticks your ethical boxes, kind of, that makes you feel I'm trying to do the responsible thing. Like, of course, there are talks about no
Yeah,
ethical consumption under capitalism and all that. But like, how do
yeah.
we straddle this line with AI? And how do you find, a comfortable middle ground?
I mean, I'm definitely guilty of using frontier models for sure in various parts of my work. Um, and at the same time, though, I do have. I mean, what I'm trying to move more and more towards. I don't know if you probably can't see it over there, but I have a little machine in the back, which is just a mini PC that I run. That is running OpenClaw. It's like one of these. People don't know AI inside of a computer, basically, that's able to do anything that a computer is able to do. So there's a lot more. So there's a lot more than just like an LLM per se. But yeah, I run that with Kimi for the most part. Kimi is um, an open source AI model that's Chinese. I tend to uh, so far, I think things are always shifting, but so far the Kimi model is kind of like the one that I've preferred the most. And the thing is, like these open source models are getting quite close to the frontier models, and they're ones that can be run on, you know, maybe not local hardware. I think we're not there yet, like hardware that anyone would have at home, but something at least that you could get, through some sort of cloud service, some sort of VPS that you could pay for that would be relatively cheap. Um, yeah, I think it's sometimes hard to not use the frontier models because you want just like the best possible answer for the specific query that you're giving or the specific prompt. But there are a lot of things. I think what's going to happen over time, open source models are going to continue to catch up. I think there may be then over time a kind of differentiation of what the models are good at specifically. So I think one of the things that I've learned from talking to AI researchers is that like they're like at least their strong belief that the AI models are going to reduce in size, that we're not going to continue to have like just bigger and beefier, or at some point we're going to reach some sort of plateau, um, and that the smaller models that are better for specific tasks that can be run on local hardware will become more available. So I tend to think that that is probably true, and that's probably um, maybe a better outcome than there being just like one or two giant companies that have the the best models, and all the other ones can't really compare. Um, so yeah, I think at one point we're gonna have to probably, as a society, figure out how do we want to govern our compute, like compute powers, and whether or not like who has a right to compute and how much of it does a person have to compute. I don't know. I think it's a really hard question to answer, but I think it's something in that space you kind of need to figure out. Which is also why I'm interested in blockchain stuff, because I think if you really want to talk about like world governance over artificial intelligences that are super intelligent, I don't know what other. I mean, it'd be a combination of different things that will maybe produce some sort of solution. But blockchains to me seem like a pretty good one, a pretty decent one to have in the mix for how these things get governed at a large scale.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. But like, governance for something that is inevitably going to have global consequences, I think, is the least we should do. Like, individual countries having AI policies that kind of don't mesh with other countries, it just makes no sense for something that is as, you know, frontier as this, that changes every week. Claude is one-shotting startups with new developments, and like, yeah, we need to be it's beyond being proactive. Like, we need to be predictive almost with the way that we govern this, especially at this current point that we're at. And yeah, so many, there's more questions that we could probably answer that anyone can answer currently. So I'd like to actually talk about what you've been using the AI to build now, since we did bring that up at the start of this section's chat. But the name, pretty provocative, is called Gas Killer. So could you tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, so Gas Killer is just an accidental product that we created from Bread Cooperative, where our lead developer, Ron, he had this kind of epiphany at one point while we were building the original Solidarity Fund voting contracts. I remember him telling me like, the problems that we were facing, because the thing that we wanted to do is we wanted real time voting using a blockchain, which is actually harder than you think because of the computational costs that is for blockchains. Blockchains are, for many things that are very easy for a single computer to do, for blockchains is very expensive to do. So voting and doing a compute on an array, like, which is basically what tallying a vote is, it can be really expensive. And so basically we had to get around this technical limitation by like referring to a specific block time. Maybe a little bit too technical, but basically we weren't able to do real time voting. Whereas, because when they hold bread, like they may be spending it, they may be sending it to different people, which means that it's fluctuating over time. But we want a monthly distribution, the time limit of the month where you want to do the distribution. People's balances are going up and down. When someone votes at one point, their balance may be different at another point. But the thing that we want to do is, when the distribution happens, is accumulate and take part and just like aggregate all of the live voting powers that different people have, rather than doing the system today where you have to look at the previous 30 days, how much someone held, in order to know what their voting power is for the next 30 days. So what that means is that if you're a new user and you buy bread, then you will not be able to vote until after the next distribution. So this is kind of like, there's like a problem that we were trying to solve. And so Gas Killer was basically what Ron came up with in order to solve this problem, but it was a solution that actually solved like the abstract problem around computation in blockchains. So blockchains treat compute a bit like fairly expensive compared to just like a normal computer. And so what Gas Killer does is it runs a simulation of a transaction off chain. So if you're doing some sort of smart contract method, it simulates off chain and it just returns the output on chain. So what you're doing is you're just kind of getting rid of the payments you would have to make for all the compute that would be done on chain. And so that solves like a lot of different types of issues around gas costs, like that are different, more like computer science-y-ish problems in the blockchain space. And so, yeah, we recently just started a company to basically make a business around this product. It's more of a traditional business, and it is like meant to be a cooperative. But it came out of like innovation that happened from Bread Cooperative. So from trying to answer real problems that we had is how we created the product. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good reason to use, because it's a very technical product. Like I said before, AI is really good with software development, or in certain respects, in certain ways, good at software development if you know how to use it. So yeah, that's one of the things that I mean, I'm not a developer, so I'm not working on it directly, but I know the developers that are working on it, they are using AI, of course, as well to do it. Yeah, the things that I'm building are much smaller in scope if I try to build anything with AI, because this is like more of a larger product and a larger project. But yeah, so like as someone who is not a developer, was able to build a couple of features in the Solidarity Fund because I just prompted an AI to do it. That's more or less it.
Nice. Very cool. Very cool. So So you said, so what is success with Gas Killer, like a company that's spun out of the cooperative? What would that look like to you?
Yeah, I mean, basically, the way that it's designed, you have to be running methods that are expensive enough to make it worth it. Because right now, the gas killer only works with, I mean, it's kind of technical, but like it only works with computation and internal reads in a smart contract method. So if you're doing a lot of state changes, like you're writing a lot of things on chain, it won't be able to save on that because that always needs to change on chain because it's going to be referenced by other things. So if you have a specific smart contract method that uses a lot of compute and is like reading a bunch of things um, inside the smart contract to compute on, then that's a really good candidate potentially. So like, for example, zero knowledge proofs, like the verification of zero knowledge proofs is quite expensive on Ethereum. And so, yeah, Gas Killer, we did a study on Railgun, which is a kind of like privacy protocol on Ethereum that showed that we could save them 50% on gas costs, or like users would save on 50% of gas costs. So yeah, I mean, for us, of course, the ideal is for every developer to be um, able to integrate Gas Killer into their smart contract. And then, yeah, I mean, the way that we make money is just we get a portion of, based on the amount of savings that we're providing to the developer, we get a portion of that to us. So it's just like payment for the service.
Yeah, fantastic. So I'm going to include all these links as well, because I know there are a few technical folks who listen to this podcast who would love to find a way to, keep operational costs down in some sort of a way. So yeah, all the Gas Killer socials, the Gas Killer blog, all of that will be in the description of this episode as well. So Josh, thank you so much for doing this. But I think we're nearing the end of our chat for today. Like, you've really given a lot of food for thought over here. So would you like to plug any new initiatives, any new things from your world, from the bread world, from any activities that we're doing that you'd like the worldwide community to participate in a little bit more?
I mean, if you're potentially coming to Berlin Blockchain Week, come say hi. We'll most likely be having our own space during the Web3 privacy event, as well as during Dapcon. So if you're going to be in Berlin for those two events, we'll have our own space for Bread Cooperative. We'll be sharing our newest application at Dapcon and giving out workshops, doing workshops, and yeah, what else? I feel like I should be asking you. Is there anything that I need to be? Is there something I'm forgetting that you need to put out?
We have another webinar coming up soon. So I think at the end of
Yeah,
April, we've got one planned. So that's in the works. So make sure you're following all the bread socials to like be in and on the loop on that. And of course, as a marketer, like, you got to sign up for the bread newsletter, because this is honestly the
sure.
best way to be in touch with all of our activities, because social media algorithms are like the bane of my existence, and getting around them is just a lot of work. So that direct line between us and you, I think, is really important. Of course, you can reply to every email that we send you through this as well. So if you want to just chit chat, there's always going to be someone there. And yeah, I just think it's a pretty exciting time in the Breadverse. We have a couple of projects coming up, a new release. Um, we didn't mention the mechanism very briefly early in the chat. So Josh, would you like to talk about stacks? Should we leave that for another day?
Maybe we talk about it next time.
All
Just
right.
'cause we're
All
talking
right.
about so much. I don't know.
Yeah,
I
sure,
can,
sure.
but it gives a reason to do another one.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And also, like, a show don't tell sort of a
Yeah.
thing. We can give you some like juicy alpha in the follow-up chat, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
can link the webinar recording
for sure.
maybe
I
as
will
well.
do that. I will do that. So yeah, we have an exciting project coming up. If you are in the world of rotating savings, do check it out. The dialogue is very much active over here. If you're a part of the community, we'd love to, have you contribute. If you have time and skills that you'd like to dedicate to the cause of, making crypto more useful, more approachable, and just all around more wholesome for people, like, there's a place for you at Bread.
Join
Uh,
us.
nice.
Break some bread with us.
Any final words of wisdom for the folks at home, Josh?
Words of wisdom.
Or not. Words of wisdom, joy, rousing, anything.
um I mean, I just hope that if you guys were liked any of the things that I said, that you guys get involved in whatever capacity you feel like you can. Um, and yeah, bake some bread.
Fantastic. And on that note, this will be us signing off. This is Marv calling in from Canada. This is Josh, the Blockchain Socialist, calling in from Berlin. We wish you a fantastic week ahead. And yeah, we will catch you very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thanks so much for listening. I appreciate all ratings, thumbs up, shares on whichever platform that you're listening to this. Don't forget to subscribe if you're on YouTube. Those subscriptions really help with the visibility of my channel. If you like this, then I think you're going to love my Substack because I get into more detail on things. I try to publish as frequently as I can because there's just so much happening online. I won't promise to have all the answers, but what I can do is promise that I can show you the journey that we're going on so you can reach your own conclusions. There's plenty more episodes where this came from, so enjoy. Catch you on the next one. Cheers.